Hey everybody, Tom Barnes, stories from the 78 from Guarneri Hall right at 11 East Adams. A venue here in the city, a very intimate space, unassuming. I'm walking right here in the Loop. When I mean unassuming, it's in a random office building, but right down the street from the iconic Berghoff, right off of State Street and the whole thing. I'm gonna go inside and get a look at this space, talk to the founder now for this story from the 78. All right, so you're looking inside Guarneri Hall, and I'm here with Stefan, the founder of this entire organization. How are you, sir?
Good, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Absolutely, and the instrument back there, you mentioned not a prop. It's part of your daily life that you were doing prior to me coming here.
That's true. I practice the violin every single day, and funny enough, that violin's made by a maker named Guarneri, which is who the hall is named after.
Oh, so explain a little who that person is, because obviously influential enough to name your organization after.
Right, so the most famous violin maker of all time that many have heard of is Stradivari. But contemporary with the Stradivari family was another family called the Guarneri family, who the best of those are equal to Stradivari's. And I'm lucky enough to have a Guarneri violin. And so that's the genesis of the name, because we admire them as much as we admire Stradivari's, and figured Guarneri deserves a little love too.
Absolutely, share the love for sure. This space, very intimate space, about 60 people for an event-ish, if sitting down.
60 people, that's the actual...
No ish, it's
no
60.
Ish, the hard cap, because we can't really have standing room even in here, and too many people, it starts to change the sound of the room. It's a very delicate balance within the room.
Oh, I never thought of that, but that's an excellent point. So what types of shows or performances do you have here that some folks might not even be aware that this exists? So introduce them to that.
Right, so we have traditional chamber music, classical chamber music, where the space was purpose-built for acoustic instruments, and that's pretty much all we have. What we didn't understand when we commissioned this space was how good it would be for vocal music, and it takes a larger load in here than we had expected initially, so we actually have a wider range of music possible. And what's so unique about it is the proximity to the performers and the immediacy of the room. It's just kind of immersive for going to a chamber music concert. For those of us that play music professionally, this is much more an analog to how we experience music when we play it. And for those that normally go to large venues and hear wonderful performances at Symphony Center, this is really inside the activity rather than outside the activity as there.
I imagine you might struggle a little bit about where you play when you develop a place like this that is so tuned to the sound that you are looking for outside of this space. As you mentioned, you are an everyday musician.
Yeah, it's funny that you say it. A close colleague of mine for many years, a violist named Roger Chase, who I had played with for decades before we built this space, came into this space with me the first year that we opened, and we played, and he said immediately, "You're never going to want to play anywhere else." And you know, funny enough though, the way to make it clean for the organization, I actually don't do very much playing here in Guarneri Hall. I've pretty much set it up for other artists, and most of my playing's not even in Chicago these days. It's out of town, either a lot of it's on the West Coast, or where I have old ties, or I do some playing in Europe as well.
Is that just based on you don't want to mix your professional life with this particular part of your professional life, or is it just that that's where you are in your career, where you want to create a space for other musicians to thrive in Chicago?
It's a little of all those things. The truth of it is I have done some playing here. It's a great joy to play here, especially with some of the colleagues. But when we're presenting an event, I'm kind of on call for the presenting of the event, and when I have to play as well, it distorts things so much for me that it's hard to be comfortable. So I'm much happier here as just a presenter. And yes, where I'm at in my career, I'm no spring chicken now. The next generation.
I meant because you were seasoned veteran. That's what I meant. Not because you were been doing it for a long time. But
I don't take it badly. I really do cherish that we bring incredible young artists along here and put them in front of audiences, and I value that at this point more than just putting myself out on stage to play a piece I've played many, many times. It's just a great joy to see the incredible young talent that comes through here and work with them. And most of the time when we have performances, we have a recording session the next day, and I'll produce that. And it's just an incredible pleasure to behold these talents and the level that's coming along these days. It's really exciting, and to bring people in here to experience that firsthand and really close like we do.
And I imagine that is part of the stewardship of being a musician, is teaching the next generation, or not even teaching, but showing them, giving them opportunity to thrive, to continue that legacy that is music in Chicago, but specifically the type of music that you have been a part of your professional life.
And actually my whole life, since I grew up third generation of family of musicians myself. I'm not sure that every musician needs to do that, but it's important to me. So
well, the industry itself.
The industry needs it, yeah. And I that's definitely resonates with my value system, and it's a great pleasure to do it here. It's also really nice to know that I can stay plugged in and involved, as I presume my skills will have to decline as I age, but I'll still have something to do with bringing music forward into the future through this place and who knows what else.
And the event that you have coming up here in April, the first week of April, with a silent movie. Want to explain a little bit of that and the reasoning why?
Sure. So the main reason that we're having this Buster Keaton film revolves around a colleague of mine, Stephen Prutsman, who will be here to present that. Steve is an unbelievable pianist who won lots of awards, and I've known him for some years. And he also writes music, and he's a rare person who's fluent in classical and jazz. And so he writes scores that reflect this multi background, and he's very deeply interested in silent film as an art form, and some years ago began orchestrating new scores for silent films. I saw some of this, I don't even remember how long ago, but he's quite well known all over the country for doing this. So I asked him to come last year, and we presented Sherlock Jr. It was great fun. We had his original score and screened the film, and I asked him to come back, and luckily he agreed. This time it's Keaton's masterpiece, The General. This is a film that
Civil War film?
It's a Civil War film. It sort of takes the Confederate point of view. The General, the title refers to a particular locomotive engine that is treasured in the film. And this is an interesting history. The film was not well received in its day. Keaton spent an enormous amount of money making it. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, it was like $750,000 back in 1926, I think they made it. So it's almost 100 years now.
Yeah.
That was a lot of money 100 years ago. And they lost money on the film, and it ended up clipping Keaton's wings as far as the studios were concerned. His contract became restricted after that. And the film was so underappreciated that it wound up, I don't even think the copyright was renewed after the 28 years, so it went into the public domain really early. But then much later it became more regarded and wound up very, heralded by many as his greatest film of all, and it's actually a spectacular tour de force. I haven't heard Steve's score and how that will work with the film. I can't wait. That's all I can say. Me personally, I cannot wait. So I have to make sure there's at least one place for me to sit down.
Yeah, I imagine that is one of those feather in your cap moments where you really are excited about what you've been doing to be able to be in a situation like that.
It is. I mean, every single event we present here has an aspect like that. It's like bucket list performances happening in the kind of bucket list space. And it's really, because for us as performers, being this close to, be able to make contact with the audience that way is really unusual. For audience members, feeling like you're in the performance and know what's going on and kind of live every moment of it, it's just a whole different experience. We have a really devoted following that's built up around the place for that reason.
And imagine, as you're talking about the space, the 60 seats, you're right up on here. There's a screen that kind of drops down just right here, right? And
that's
this
right.
is where people kind of enjoy. So You got the beautiful piano here now. How does that work with the movie screen? Is the piano in the same spot? Does it move a little bit?
We'll move the piano off to the side, and I think what we did last year we'll do again this year, which is the non-pianists, that whole group of players will be on one side, and Steve will probably be on the other side. So I think we'll probably have Steve over here on stage right, and the instrumentalist playing on stage left, and the screen in the middle. And the thing is, Steve also gives brilliant commentary before, and his scoring of things really amps up the humor in Keaton's work, and the tragedy too. Everything it's all very. It's both sophisticated and accessible at the same time in a really wonderful way.
As you were talking about the film, it reminded me of the story of the movie It's a Wonderful Life, a movie that came out that was really underappreciated at the time, went into public domain, and it was on TV every Christmas as filler back in its day.
Yes,
and
indeed.
Now,
when I was a kid, I remember, yeah.
Yeah, and now look at what it is now.
So it's an iconic film, yeah.
Yeah, very
Absolutely.
similar story.
Yes.
So for folks that want to get involved with coming to a show here, what's the best way for them to find out when things are playing, what's coming up, and so on and so forth?
So people should sign up on our mailing list at guarnerihall.org. And pay attention to the mailings that go out. We send a weekly email out with upcoming events. But these days, things sell out very quickly, and so I would urge people, if they're interested in what we're doing, to sign up for sure. I also would suggest that anyone that goes and looks, it's guarnerihall.org, GUARNERIHALL.org. Anybody who sees an event that they want to go to that's sold out should write to us and get on the wait list, because pretty frequently people will cancel at the last minute, and then if you're watching and on it, you'll get tickets and get in and catch whatever's happening.
And I will say, just walking up my first time here, the space is almost unassuming that there is something like this when you're walking outside, because it says Federal across the top. Like, you think and with everything in the news, you're like, oh, is this a federal? It's not a federal building.
No, nothing.
No,
to do with
it has to do with a bank.
Yeah.
But you walk in, and then what floor is it?
This is the third floor.
Third floor.
And it is really innocuous. Some people call it like a speakeasy for classical music.
Very much so.
Yeah. And so we like that image. It is an insider's spot for sure. You'll find a lot of musicians come because they know about it, and although they can be late to the tickets now, and that's becoming so that we see a little bit of a wrestling match happening for tickets these days.
I suppose that's a good problem to have.
Exactly. I think
Well,
so.
Thank you so much for taking time to sit down and talk with me about your wonderful space that you have here, and the film coming up here. I believe it's April 3rd. Yes.
Yeah, April 3rd.
What time does the show kick off?
6:30.
6:30, and then you'll have a few more other things happening throughout the year, and people.
There are some. We have. That's the end of our regular season, but we have guest presenters presenting wonderful events here later in April and in May and in June. The other thing that we should stress for people is, if they come, they need to plot a little bit of time. We have the show early at 6:30. It's normally done by 7:45, close to 8, and then we have a party next door, and all the artists come and hang out, and we have nice food and drink, and it's really fun. And sometimes people stay really late. And so to me, I take that as a compliment. They're having fun at the party.
Absolutely.
It puts a little work on the staff, but
Sure.
we're here for that.
Well, it's like a good party. You go to a great party, and it says, let's say 7:30 to 9 or something, and you're still at that party, and it's 11:30 at night, it's a good party.
Been there, done that right here.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to it. Thank you so much for taking time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming, Tom.
Absolutely. All right, that is the story from the 78 at Guarneri Hall. TomBarneyChicago@gmail.com. If you have a story from the 78 suggestion, hit me up there. Watch the podcast, all the things at Stories from the 78. TomBarneyChicago@gmail.com. That's the email. Everybody, we'll see you later.